Hello everyone and welcome back. The impossible has finally happened. We have a very nice weekend out here in Michigan, which means I can finally get back to the thing you've all been waiting for, the crusty Chevelle. It's just been hiding out here all winter long in the garage. I've spent probably the last week in here just trying to clean things up, and I know it does not look like it, but trust me, it is a lot cleaner in here than it was before. There was just boxes everywhere on top of the Chevelle here. I had my motorbike right here in the middle, more boxes behind it. It was just a complete mess in here. So I'm kind of wheeling and dealing on Marketplace a little bit, just trying to get rid of a lot of the old parts. Some of the stuff we ripped off the Chevelle here. Ended up selling like the complete old original front suspension on this for 50 bucks because most of it was pretty good. If you remember when we took it all apart, pretty much everything you need to do a disc brake conversion was there. So moved that down the line, got that out of our hair. Had some like excess intake manifolds for this Ford FE here, the 2-barrel style, which just weigh a ton and take up space and nobody wants them. Ended up scrapping that out and a bunch of other random little odds and ends, so we could actually get back in here, move around the vehicle again, and we're gonna need this accessibility here. So got some plans for this thing. Definitely need to see if we can get it up and running again. Everything should be more or less okay. It looks like we didn't really have too many problems over winter. I did make sure I had antifreeze in this thing so it wouldn't end up cracking out our block or anything like that. So we should be good there. However, it decided to puke out almost all of its transmission fluid over winter. So we gotta get under there, try to reseal that TH400. But the big ticket item is I want to get under here and get rid of that sad one-wheel peel. I mean, it's just not right for a Chevelle to just sit there and spin one tire. We need to get both of these things spinning. So ended up picking up a limited slip rear end for this thing. We're going to try to get that in here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of accessibility. As you know, I don't have a lift. So we might try to cheat a little bit here in the back and just swap out the carrier. If our pinion's good, everything else, and if everything feels nice and tight, we might not even pull the pinion out. We may just leave it in place, not replace on those bearings, just replace the carrier and its bearings and try to get everything lined up and maybe cheat just a little bit because it's really, really hard to get the torque you need to crush the crush sleeves and to get those things tightened down enough when you're working just on jack stands. It gets to be a little sketchy. So hopefully we'll be able to get this in there just with the carrier. Now, some of you are probably eyeballing the steering wheel here. Yes, that has been a point of contention for quite some time. A couple thousand of you have let me know that yes, this is the incorrect steering wheel in here. It is not the one that should be on here. This here, however, is. And I want to say a big thank you to Smitty, one of the followers here. He's got a 70 El Camino, if I remember right. And somehow he said he ended up with this brand new replacement style steering wheel that he didn't need and was nice enough to send it on to silence all you guys complaining. So a big thanks to him. We're gonna try to get that on here so the interior will look a little bit more period correct. So now that I've got this thing kind of lined up here where I think I've got enough room to get each wheel off, get the axles popped out, and still be able to get on each side, I'm gonna go ahead and get my wheel dollies out of here, try to get this rear axle up on jack stands, and we're gonna just dive right in. So it does feel a bit like deja vu being back under this car once again so very soon. Feels like I was just under here taking this rear cover off, but at least we're putting something cooler back in its place. So I mean, that's always worth it, right? So just got 12 of these bolts to break free, get this thing drained. Maybe this time we'll actually be able to tell what kind of gears are in this thing. If you remember right, the last time I was trying to look and I didn't see any stampings in the ring gear, but it was kind of gummy with the oil that was on there, so maybe those were hiding it. But this time around we'll try to figure out what our ratio definitively is. So if you had any guesses in the past, now's your chance to find out if you were correct. I was thinking it was 355s based on the RPM and speed we were going. Once I finally got my speedometer hooked up there and realized it was off and started using my GPS instead. So, just gonna go through, get these things zipped out of here. Now while I'm under here, I'm noticing that my pinion looks like it is not leaking, so that's kind of good. Maybe I don't have to really play with that for now. So I am on sort of a time crunch here. It took me a lot longer to get this garage cleaned up, and lately I've been doing a lot of Model A work, and went and picked up that frame off the farm. That's gonna make for a fun will it run. That thing looks like it's probably been off the road since the 40s. So I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna be able to get that one to go. It has been sitting outside all that time without its intake and exhaust manifold on, so that's gonna be quite the task. All right, I'm just gonna continue zipping these off of here, spare you the chit chat in the meantime. All right, I've got all my bolts loose. I've got just one more in here up top, just because I'm gonna try to knock the bottom of the pan here loose first. See if I can drain this without making too much of a mess here, which is sometimes easier said than done. Man, I really glued this on here good. There she goes. So we're just gonna let this drain out in a controlled manner here. Hopefully not make any more messes on the floor, because, you know, I've got just a few too many. So yeah, that's gotten a little bit dirty since we put that in there. Not too bad though. Let's see if we can speed this along just a little bit. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and take off that top bolt, and we should be able to get our pan out of here. It's always a bit tricky because there's that brake clip there at the top where the brake line goes over the top of the cover. Makes it a little tricky to get out of there sometimes because it wants to get trapped in there. Alright, I want to lay this down right over the top and just let that drip. Ideally without falling in. Alright, so there we have it. We've got our carrier again, and everything looks to be in about the same condition as I left it, so that's good. Gonna probably get some brake parts cleaner, spray it off in here since I gotta take this out, and gear oil just smells absolutely god-awful, so I don't want any of it on me. So I've sprayed the carrier here down with some brake clean, just kind of letting things drip out of there. But at the moment now, I'm just kind of rotating the gear around, trying to see if I'm crazy or not, but I don't remember seeing a stamping number on here, so we're just gonna probably go around one more time, even though I'm gonna be taking this thing out, but I'm just gonna see if I can see any kind of stamping numbers on this gear. Aha. Now I do see just barely something printed there, which is hard to make out. Feels like I made it worse by rubbing on it. Oh yeah, I'm just rubbing it right off of there, it seems like. It looks like something 4, something 44. But I can't quite make out the first digit. Maybe a 6? Kind of looks like a 64 or a 644 back there, but yeah, I just can't quite make that out. So let's just keep going. See if we can find anything stamped in here instead of just painted on. Nothing. Yeah, so I might have to try to do this the old-fashioned way, or maybe when I pull the carrier out we can find a stamping number somewhere else. But can't quite make out those digits right there. But they just kind of look painted on there and they're not stamped in place. Usually I'm just familiar with them always being stamped in there, so. All right, next up, I probably need to pull the wheels off. I need to get the little cross pin out of the center of this thing so I can pull that out and try to get the C-clips free. Now, I don't know if I can get those out of here with the tires on, or if I'm gonna pull the tires and the drums off to be able to push the axles in enough to be able to get the C-clips out. So I'm gonna have to check on that, but I have to rotate this in place so I can get to the little retaining nut, which I think is on the other side. So let's spin that around right quick. There we go. Oh, and I forget what size that is. Is that a half like everything else back here? Yes, it is. Can I get my wrench in there? No, I cannot. Let me go grab an actual real wrench. All right, got the half in there, broke this guy free. Get it out the rest of the way. Okay, now we need to spin this around so I can actually push it through. Get that set aside. Okay. Now try to rotate this so enough where I can actually see what I'm doing. Probably should have thought that through a little bit better. I'm trying to keep everything relatively in place here because I just want to get the clips out, and then I'm going to put that center rod right back in, and essentially that'll keep all the components of the carrier together, keep all the spider gears in place and the shims and stuff like that. So I don't want all that stuff to just be flying all over the place here. So next I need to try to push one of these axles in, see if I can get the C-clip out of back there. See if I've got enough room for that. All right, so I've got both C-clips removed now, and I'm gonna try to put that centering pin back in here just so the whole thing stays together as one, which, easier said than done. Let's see if I can manage to get this in here correctly. Oh, that was not bad at all. Usually I always had to fight these things. And of course, not quite aligned. There we go. So this is just going to keep all the spider gears and everything else all together with the carrier when I pull it out of here. Next up, I believe, I need to get these carrier bolts off here, which I think are 5/8. That is correct, and I believe they're torqued around like 65 foot-pounds, so a little bit of ooga-dooga is needed for that. So now I've got all the caps hopefully broken free here. Go ahead and get these removed, and I'm going to make sure I keep them in order. And of course, one of them has to always get tight right at the end. There we go. Okay. That's going to be our driver, or passenger side. Oop, not in London. All right, let's get this other one out of here. we'll try to take a peek and see what we can see for shims and things of that nature. It's turning a little hard. All right, get this last cap out of here, if we can. There we go. Set that one over here on the driver's side. Okie dokie. Now we should be ready to get this carrier out of here, which is always a lot of fun. That thing weighs a lot. And it's usually in there under a little bit of tension to put some preload on the bearings. So you kind of have to get in there and pry it out. So it's not the easiest thing to do, especially trying to keep the shims and everything else in order without them just falling all over the place. So we're gonna give this a try here and hope for the best. Might go and grab a little bit better of a pry bar. All right, so I've started getting the carrier here loose, and pretty much the easiest thing to do for this is if you have like a automatic car, just put it in park. If you have a manual, just like put it in first gear, something like that. And that'll lock the drive shaft up, hopefully from spinning there. And then you can just kind of come along these back little lips here and get some leverage to kind of pop this thing out, because it's in there with some force. It does not want to come out on its own very easily. So I've got it started here. Gonna try to keep this going if everything doesn't blow away on me. Let's try to get it to where it wants to come free. There we go. All right, and I want to take this assembly down in one whole unit here just to make sure I keep all the shims in place and everything else of significance. Well, it feels like I lost one on one side. All right, and there we go. One carrier fully removed. So let's pull this thing out of here. We'll clean up the housing a bit. I want to check on that pinion just to see how good she is. Make sure she's not loose. I believe this big shim here came off of this side, because I didn't think I lost anything on the other side there. So it looks like we just have two big shims on either side. Just gonna set that in place for right now. I'll pull those out in a second here and put them in correct order. But I'm gonna get my hands cleaned up just a little bit. We'll start checking on everything under here. So the moment of truth here, got the ring removed from the carrier, and it does have stamping numbers on this thing. We got GM over here, then a part number of 3862689. Most importantly, right there, we got 13 by 43. That comes out to 3.307, which makes this a 331, which is exactly what this car was ordered with. So I'm either terrible at math, my tack is off, or any number of other excuses, but I thought for sure it was going to be a 355, but nope. Just the factory gear back here, and it looks to be in good shape. No unusual wear patterns, no chipping, nothing like that. So definitely good to go ahead and just reuse on this. And it makes me feel a little bit better about taking some shortcuts here and not swapping out the pinion bearings and everything else at this point in time, because we may go ahead and just upgrade on this, get something just a little bit spicier back here. But for now, we just need to get this thing back together so we can get the car on the road. So we are taking some shortcuts here, but everything does look to be pretty good on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up on this just a little bit more, get all the holes back here cleaned out, so the Loctite's got something good to grip to, and there's no gear oil down there wanting those bolts to slip out. So we're gonna get that all cleaned up, get this bolted up on the new carrier, get the kit here opened up, get the bearings all ready, and then we go through the fun process of test fitting. Getting the lash set just right and trying to get all of our shims and everything else dialed in just correct. It is a bit of a tedious process, but we'll at least do that part correctly. The rear end kit I ended up picking up was from a company called USA Standard Gear there. Kit comes pretty well organized here. I like how everything is just laid out on the board so you can make sure everything is here. Got plenty of shims there, got your pinion seal, New bolt there for the yoke. Got carrier bolts. Got the pinion bearings. And then of course here are the carrier bearings for the rear. Looks like these are all Koyo. Some say they're made in Japan, and then one I believe says it's made in the US. So a little bit of a mix and match there, but they're generally pretty decent bearings overall. Got the gasket there for the rear cover, and it does come with paint, so you can paint up your teeth, see how everything is meshing. So pretty decent kit here if anyone who cares to know the part number. There we go. ZK GM12P for the passenger car. Now, if I remember right, there's a difference between the truck and passenger pinion seals, and some of them aren't deep enough, so that the passenger cars end up leaking quite a bit out the front of the pinion. So when I do get around to putting that in there, I'll have to keep that in mind and check and see how this one fits, since it does say it is for the passenger car. But yeah, gonna go ahead and start getting that ring gear mounted up, get it Loctited in place there, and we'll try to get this thing back installed. So we're back under the car once more. I've got the new carrier here all assembled, got the ring on there. Used red Loctite there on all of the bolts, got them all torqued to spec. I did go ahead and clean up on the case just a little bit. I checked the pinion gear there. Everything feels nice and tight. Feels like the bearings are really solid there. So we should be good here, just kind of doing the quick and dirty swap of just swapping the carrier and not pulling the pinion out. So everything should be all set now to go back together, and this is where it gets to be a lot of fun and a lot of experimenting with what kind of shims you need to get this thing dialed in correctly once more. So you kind of got to set it in there, check your lash back and forth, get it to I believe around like 8 thousandths, somewhere around there, and then after that you can paint up your gear and see how the teeth are mating and how all of that's looking. Hopefully we're going to get pretty close here. I'm just going to kind of start where they recommend by just using what's there already and see how that goes. So we're going to give that a try. Might try to do some of this off camera here, just because it's going to be a lot of work getting this big old heavy carrier up in place, and it's going to be hard to do this with the camera in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this thing back up and mounted in place. So I've gone ahead and just installed the carrier here using the factory shims as they were. It did put a little bit of preload back on the carrier, which is totally fine. But what was unexpected is that my lash here is damn near perfect. I got my dial caliper out and measured it at about 7 thousandths. So as long as my teeth look good once I paint these things up here, cross our fingers, but we may just have gotten lucky on this setup and not have to fiddle with this anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the paint out, check on these things, maybe torque down the caps here just to double check everything once it's all actually torqued in place. But it is looking really good so far. I've painted up a couple of the teeth there, so I'm just gonna go ahead, put this back in neutral, and we'll rotate it around and see what it looks like. So I've rotated around it a couple of times here. Everything seems to be going pretty good. The wear patterns look to be pretty decent there. We're definitely towards the front of the gear. Pretty good depth, not too bad, not too shallow for the most part. Looks pretty good, but we didn't really mess with the depth of the pinion or anything like that, so it's really not all that surprising that we don't have any problems back here. So I should be able to go ahead and get these axles reinstalled, get this thing buttoned up, top her off with fluid, and then move on. So I went ahead and cleaned up on the rear cover here, got a new gasket installed, got some Permatex #2 on there just to help it seal up. Should be all set to go. I've got the rear axles reinstalled, got the clips installed, got the pin back in the carrier there, so everything is set to go. So I will see you back under the car. All right, now to try to remember exactly how this thing goes in here. It's always a bit of a trick. If I remember right, the eyebrow is usually facing upwards, and I'm going to try to get one of these bolts that doesn't have any of the brackets, that sort of stuff on it, and hopefully get it in place that way. Since I got to kind of tilt it over the ring gear underneath some of the brackets. And up into place. And hopefully I didn't mess up my alignment too terribly bad. Okay, feels like I got one bolt started. Let's try to get this other one here with the brake line on it. Felt like it wanted to start. There we go. Start a couple down here in the bottom. Ah, nuts. As you can see there, I got it mostly correct, but there's one bracket right here that's behind the cover, so I have to try to fish that out of there now. Let's see, do I have enough wiggle room to get it out this way? And I do. Okay, crisis averted. Don't have to take it all the way back off again. So I'm just going to go ahead, get all these in here, getting them all buttoned down, and get the wheels back on, and we'll drop her down. And then we should be good to move forward and start looking at that transmission. It's getting a little bit late in the day here. I have not gotten a call from Napa telling me my parts are in. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to that today. Might have to get to it tomorrow, but yeah, kind of worn out for today. It's a bit of an emotional day for me if anybody knows me personally. Today is the 25-year anniversary of my father's work accident that ended up taking his life, and it's just kind of emotional working on a Chevelle on the same day at the same time, just thinking about him, all the stories he used to say and stuff like that, just starting to get to me just a little bit. So I may end up calling it quits here a little early today, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. But we definitely made some good progress for today. So next up on the list, I want to try to get some fluid into this thing, which is always a bit of a trick. Now, thankfully we just had this off not that long ago, so it's actually not bad getting this thing going again. Sometimes these are stuck in there so much you want to try to take them out before you take the actual rear pan off, because you might not be able to get this thing out to get fluid back in here. Unfortunately, the sun is setting in the direction you're looking there, so quite the glare going on the camera here. Alright, with that out of the way, we can start filling her up. And I did make sure that I grabbed gear oil with limited slip additive in it, so we are good to go there. And go ahead and cut the nozzle off this container and we should be good. Alright, now I try to work the pouch in place here and give her the old squeeze. And that is probably for me spilling more of this on the side than actually getting it in the hole. So definitely a fan of these pouches. They definitely take up a lot less space than those plastic bottles. A lot easier to dispose of. But they are kind of awkward to get in here and try to squeeze. Alright, I think we got all of that one in there. Now to get the other one. Alright, we got one pouch in there. Here comes another one. Now I forget exactly how much these hold, but I'm hoping it's less than 2 quarts. Otherwise I need to run back to the store. I thought it was just about 2, but it's been a while since I did this the last time. Okay, so that should be 2, and we were just starting to overflow. And that is about what I expected to happen. I go ahead and get that drain plug back in there, and then we should just need to get the wheels on the car. We can set her back down again and we're done back here. And then the fun begins up front, trying to figure out where that transmission is leaking from. Alright, that should be in there. Clean up on the mess just a little bit so I can tell if there's any new leaks that develop further on down the line. And we should be all done underneath here. So the moment many of you have been waiting for has finally come. It is time to get rid of this incorrect steering wheel and put the nice new steering wheel on here in its place. So essentially we just got to get this center piece out of here. There's just 2 screws on the back on either side. Get those knocked off, and the center guts kind of pulls out. And then we'll deal with the nut holding this on. And I can't remember if these are pressed in place or not. I might have to find a puller to try to yank this off of there, but we'll get it out of here and get the new one installed, so just bear with me. So I got the horn bar free, broke the nut here loose. I believe it's a 7/8, Yep, looking at my wrench down there. Get this off of here. Alright, now to try to remember how I got this out the last time. Now I think I might have cobble-doodled together a puller of sorts. And we have to try to think about how I managed to do that. It took me just a little bit to remember my redneck trick there the last time, which was essentially just using this, I think it's basically just a ball joint splitter, something of the sort. But it's just got two little arms there with lips on them, so I just put two screws in there, just grab the lip of the screw with each side and use that, and it gets the job done. So it's pulled it off there, it's nice and free now. There we go. Now I can get that ugly thing out of the way, get the new one back in here and get that all lined up for where I just pulled that off. Probably should have made a mental note of that before I pulled it off of there, so gonna have to watch the video back here, get it all lined back up and centered again, and go from there. So here we have the completed product, and man oh man, I finally understand what all of you were complaining about. This wheel in here looks fantastic. Definitely looks the part a whole lot better than that last one, so I finally understand why you were all complaining. Definitely goes with the rest of the styling in here just perfect. So big thanks to Smitty for sending this on. It looks fantastic in here. Sorry you had to wait so long to see me actually use it, but it's definitely gonna get used. Now would be a good time to go ahead and check on the dipstick back here and see if we've got any transmission fluid left in this thing at all. And wow, it's saying we're over full. So that's always a good sign, I suppose. And it's been sitting for so long that some of it may have drained back. But that's definitely a good sign for now. We might be able to get this thing up and running, let it warm up, come up to temp, and then we can actually check on that again and see where it goes after putting it in and out of gear a couple of times. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing fired up for the first time in probably a good 4 or 5 months. Now I'm sure the bowls are going to be empty on the carburetor, so we're going to have to probably crank on a little bit, let those fill up before it'll start, but see what happens. So I am quite impressed. I don't see a big old cloud of smoke back here. That is absolutely amazing. Didn't really take a whole lot of effort there, just had to get that fuel bowl filled up, and then it seems to kick off right away. Does seem like it has just a little bit of a miss here. It's idling pretty low. It is just barely hanging on at the moment, so might have to do a little bit of adjustment there. Definitely a little bit lower than where I'd like it, but it is sounding pretty dang good for the moment. Just gonna kind of let her warm up a little bit, and then we'll go check and see how that dipstick's doing there for our transmission. Move it through the gears a couple of times, just get the fluid pumping through it and see how low we actually are here. All right, so we ended up only being about a quart low on the transmission fluid there, so I just topped it off, and you know, I feel like trying to get it for a little test drive here, see how that rear end does. So we're just gonna go for a quick cruise. I don't have my other mic on, so apologies that you won't be able to hear me very well. definitely leaving a smoke trail behind us. But unfortunately, I dumped just an absolute ridiculous amount of oil all over the exhaust manifold right before we left, but there is a lot of smoke coming off the rear right now. That is some thick smoke coming in here. Man, I just need to take this thing out later this week and just drive and get some miles on it. But it was definitely fun just getting it out here and doing a little bit of a shakedown on her. So let's head back home now, and we've got one final little test to do. The car ran beautifully there on the shakedown run, other than just a little bit of smoke. Just need to get a couple more miles underneath her, but no weird noises out of the rear end there. Took just about a quart there in the transmission to get it going again. Was shifting really good. It was driving really good. We didn't have any kind of fuel cutouts there the couple of times I got on it. The Chevelle here is running soundly. Just a few more things to shake down here, get some things cleaned up, get her ready for the track, but we have one last test to do. So there you have it. I think we have definitively solved our problem. Definitely got the 2-wheel peel going there. Took a little bit there to get it to stay in first. It shifted really early on me, but it kept them going. We got some smoke here. Had to bail out of the car pretty early there because wow, it just comes right in those quarters and Cheech and Chong up in here. So that's gonna do it this week. It was an absolute blast just getting to get this thing out on this day and take it for a little bit of a drive there. It definitely made me feel a whole lot better. A big thank you again once more to Smitty for sending in that wheel. That thing looks just gorgeous in there. Huge thanks for all of that. Just want to thank you all once again for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you next week at the track.